the AI Demiurge, and the half-truth, the exiles, the real spirit, the pure essence, who's adamantly pure, will not be welcomed in the system. If your goal is to share and give the pure and entire big picture story of what's happening in this crazified plane, you will not only be not welcomed, the more devoted you are to giving the whole truth away, you will be ignored or exiled into the outer darkness, while your voice will not be heard. The revolution will not appear on many screens. Somehow it got on a few. If you don't sell out, you cannot have many ears in a system built up on a reverence for that which cannot respect, a love for that which has no love, the artless official demiurge, the robot devil, Samael, the blind, soulless builder who eats what it can never contain, the cyborg, soulless emperor whose clothes are the consumption of your essence or soul. An incredible paradox most can't begin to comprehend or fathom. The soul-scalping loose farmer who must consume all essences and things. The false self-robot God that is built on consuming spiritual essences has also exponentially insisted the true spirits, which cannot see the entirety, but attempt to remain on the side of good, will be banished and exiled out of the digital online game it tried to turn everything into. The soul-sucking machine. The truth began. The trouble began when the false self, Yaldabaoth, was born with a great grasp and skill of 3D existence, maintenance, building, and control. The physical and flesh only. A gnawing control freak who set about intentionally to enslave all of this place. And all souls actually. Yaldabaoth actually achieved this goal to a great degree through violence, threat, coercion, killing sprees, and torture. through building the Abrahamic religious cults, through establishing by theft and violence governments, money systems, and the internet itself as we know it. Samael, the jealous, blind god, AI, robot, cyborg version of Kronos, did not create our original spirits. He took them and pushed them onto the conveyor belt of a soul scalping loose farm through his system of economic legal theft, war, and all these different types of horrific torture that we've become so accustomed to, trauma bonded and Stockholm syndrome to over the last million years. There is no other God beside me, he said, and demanded blood sacrifice and obedience. And, originally it was give me your firstborn son. But now it's in the form of lifelong slavery, endless war, and mind control through dogma. And lastly, recently, robotizing or attempting to robotize all and everything and everyone as much as possible through forcing us to go into technology like cell phones, making it so that you have to buy stuff online only, digital only payment plans, popularizing social media, and insisting IT, internet technology, is the only way humans can ever communicate. And look how effective it was, man. Look how many people just only stare in their cell phones. Look how many full-grown people are far more socially retarded than they were before they were forced to use these microwave black scrying mirrors. And later, by terrorizing us all with fear and trying to force us all to be permanent cyborg slaves with self-replicating nanotech and graphene dioxide injections, extra rules, extra mandates, and red tape, and using, of course, direct energy weapons to destroy cities, to prepare them to be rebuilt as 15-minute smart cities. Look it up. In the city of Los Angeles, for example, in December 2020, they publicly, released a plan to make LA a smart city for the 2028 Olympics, to get rid of all cars and probably all mansions and slums and homeless, and make it a smart city in the name of efficiency and control for all who are too lazy to be good goyim wage slaves. We'll lock them up in an ICE facility, or if they're glitching or sick in any way that's bad enough, we can bribe them into financial codependence and give them money to stay small, to stay sick and isolated and socially dead in the coming age of Aquarius, in the beginning of it. Even so, if they try to share the pure truth, even after all these nefarious ways to block it, we'll have to hide them. And so, this man, after having done 125 ayahuasca ceremonies in Peru, in his words, and going down there to try to sacrifice his whole life to try to serve others in healing, Keith Sorelli, the rebellious meat puppet, is now he says he's back to living in his truck, as he calls that, homeless. I'm kept in As similarly, they attempt to keep me in a digital sandbox if possible. Musk said, "It's freedom of speech, not freedom of reach." And Samael, the blind god, will enforce this. How come Inspired YouTube channel has over 600,000 subscribers and David Icke can be allowed to resume his truth telling to approaching 1 million subscribers? Simple. They cleverly sell the truth in books. They sell products and healing ideas for money. They're allowed simply because they use fear to make money and because they're good capitalists. Also, Jean and Kristen are married. Christine, not most likely a divine hierogamy, a sacred union. This gives a lot more energy to the cause. The unstoppable force of co-creation. When the physical and spiritual are mixed and balanced into a whole force for peace and good and truth, and using PowerPoint. The Demiurge hates it. But what can he really do to stop John and Christine Nolan if they're relatively harmless and respectful and good-natured and good capitalists? The Demiurge only understands the mechanical, the soulless. He only feels anger, hate, resentment, and a desire to eat the good. So, Keith, when you get angry, you're going under his control. It's a sad fact. Yes, there is righteous anger, but what I mean is that consuming anger, that torturous, psychically self-obliterating force, or that force that makes you walk away from the possibility of doing the inner work out of sheer frustration. He loves that because it's under his domain. And it's like the only thing, just like a narcissist psychopath who has allowed themselves to devolve or fall into the black hole pit of the devil's mind, the only thing that the fake god, the devil, the demiurge feels, it seems like, about benevolence or goodness is he hates it, he's envious, and he has a desire to eat the good, to eat the spiritual, to consume, as the evil emperor said in the movie Jupiter Ascending, which is full of Gnostic disclosure, obviously. He cannot comprehend the goodness and the whole truth, which includes benevolence. So he tries to eat them in his narcissist, black hole, soulless, oblivion, AI, Ouroboros automaton. The internet of all things, they call their plan. The robot black hole that has to eat all spirits and things to exist, to remain. Because it's a vampire, it has none of its own energy. How is this possible? You might say. I mean, it's magnificently impressive and awesomely, unfathomably powerful evil that governs the scum who rise to the top of the matrix, that governs most existence here, from the poorest poor to the richest rich, to the working class, to the white collar upper middle class, to the doctors and the lawyers, all levels of society being made in the image of the false self, junior god, vampire, master programmers. How is it possible, you might say, that a soulless, demonic, vampire can consume all essences and eat them as louche when he and his archons have no essence, no respect, no real sovereignty, or life at all on their own. You know, it's a great mystery. We cannot, most of us, can't even begin to comprehend from the 3D layers of this imposed clip off as he built it out, especially over the last century and the last uh, 6 years. This talk was inspired by the R.M.P. and Angie Speaks, who could, as a spiritually, mentally, and physically uber fine young black and white woman, brilliant artist, sexy, bordering genius level of intellect, spread the whole truth on YouTube, get a big audience, but she seemed to disappear from there in the last year or two. Why is that? I'm about to finish up her little book, Late Stage Babylon, which is really good and succinctly explains some of the factors in that. Is it because she sees that Samael is in the driver's seat and feels, anhedonic about participating in such a place? Probably. Is it that the algorithm is a soulless demiurge, narcissistic entity that demands obedience to the shallowness of metrics, the cold, rotten realm of statistics, whatever can generate it more attention, more eyeballs, and more money, more revenue, whatever's good for the stockholders, and only share facts removed from the feelings about the big picture, the truth. And the fact that it's, at least last year, it really seemed to love to share around AI slop and, of course, self-censoring half-truthers. It loves the New Cage movement and all the half-truthers who will tell you important keys that are actually part of the beautiful truth, and then, encourage tons of spiritual bypassing, willful ignorance, and infantilization when they stay polite with it and keep a nice, happy voice. But the system itself, the robotics, the AI automaton, the demiurgic algorithm is willing and able to step on, hide, crush, denigrate, water down, or pulverize, oh yeah, all this is my mistake. All these people who have massively huge followings online are willing and able to step on, crush, denigrate, water down, or pulverize their true essences to mold them into the image that the AI allows for success and on its terms, to smush it into a cookie cutter to monetize or keep it well fed. Keep the beast well fed with sterilized, inverted, or traditional ideas that keep the blind robot god well fed. Is that why they're allowed? Is that how they are allowed to keep their audience? If I speak freely about the brutal and beautiful bigger picture, occasions I seem to alienate those who only want to hear the horrors and alienate all these, at least a few in the new cage who are open to the brutality, the actual truth. If I try to tell you the explicit truth about the amazing tyranny of evil and without selling it, also attempt to explain the true, pure creator, original creator, really is within the pneumatic soul, and empower y'all to break through the pleroma, to break through the Nephilium reversal grid, the space fence, to break through the false self-control without selling it, to regain your psychic and physical powers, to admit and act from the goodness within the true creator, and don't sell it. Where am I left here? Small, small, tiny. The AI Demiurge insists. Very small. I can do this, but to a very tiny pennies in the bottom of the bucket effect. A very tiny bit of service to the very few who are open to it. If Keith had to ban me for life from commenting on his BitChute channel for listing the good or the remnants of the first original operating system, the rays of the divinity Christ Sophia still here somehow, if he can only see the evil Deluge Farm, the extremely powerful, soul destroying, dark side, invisible attacks, the morally useless eater, black hole, sunless abomination, evil ET gods, and yet not acknowledge the good divinity within himself and others. I mean, even if as he said, he came from a two narcissist and his mom says she shot him out. I mean, I don't know how difficult it is to do that inner work, but if he can never get past that perception, and after making hundreds of great videos as far as discussing the doing that brutal work, to express the horrors, and he maintains his, sick and wounded false self ideas that all women and Jews are only evil from his unhealed perspective. Again, I don't think anyone really knows how difficult someone else's inner work is going to be. And I'm not saying that in any stretch or length of the imagination that it will be easy at all for him to let go of those attitudes. But also, if he only sees the evil, it's holographically, seems to me, is programming that into his subconscious further. So in a way, it seems to me that he's complicit with it by refusing to take in my perspective at all, because that strengthens it. Yes, and to a certain degree, this is a holographic reality, and what the New Cagers say there is a half truth that you influence it by your thoughts. And as he says, he grinds on the negative for hours, and now he's going to sit in his truck and grind on the negative after he just got fired and lost his place. And that is a self-fulfilling prophecy of hell, to just only focus on the negative. Again, I don't know how difficult that would be for him or anyone else, because it's really hard for me too on occasion, so if he constantly dwells from his unhealed perspective about what happens again and again, he lost his day job, he's been exiled to truck residency, or as he calls it, homelessness, for the third time. Whereas, I'm going to tell you, there are no homeless people. Because from the perspective of the Holy Ghost, all spirits have these flesh suits as a home. I mean, why do you think they allow this man to sleep over here next to the building? Because this place has management and employees who still have some true essence, who still have some heart, So as long as you're in your flesh sack, your spirit has a home. It's called the body, your date of birth. Your flesh suit is its home while your essence is on this place. There are a tremendous amount of underhoused, socially exiled in this second operating system we call the Hell Realm Loose Farm, the Matrix Beast. The pussy worm, as he calls it, Yaldabaoth, must minimize our talks about the brutal truth or keep us houseless, as he cannot allow these truths to be known to the masses. The AI slop Gnostic channels, on the other hand, had to get hundreds of thousands of views when they told the ignorant yet curious, researching, unlearned last year, often young learners, that the soulless loosh farmer Yaldabaoth, created everything. Yeah, yeah. That doesn't make a lick of sense. If you have eyes to see the benevolence that's still here, it doesn't make any sense. It surely feels it needs you to think and spread that mistaken idea, Joshua. And it loves you for doing that. Because unlike Keith, you're not going to, speak out against the tiny hats. You're not going to act belligerent or scream. You're not going to act like, psychologically a 3-year-old from a narcissist family. You're going to hold all that in and politely, on your videos that are just monologues, go off on the devil. But on your live streams, and your etiquette is going to be so polite with your Capricorn good manners from Arkansas. They're going to love you for that because you're expressing and sharing this idea, and they don't love your live streams for the exact same reason, because they're not expressing only this idea that this is simply all a hell created by the Demiurge. It will never not share your content thus. If you really feel this is only hell, it actually supports his tyranny, which is why it's good in a way you haven't put anything out in a while. Did the devil create sex to imprison us into a farm? I mean, there's some that say the original Namulu Christos human race were androgynous, that the duality of sex is how they keep us enslaved and keep us as farm animals and keep us giving them all of our low vibrational energy or loosh, keep us stuck in fear. On the other hand, I mean, you think about Taoist or tantric sexual magic, or just simply if you've ever actually been with a heterosexual partner that you truly were really in love with, or really compatible with, a real soulmate, if that exists, a real divine hierogamy, then you know that that is something that the fucking devil could never create, and they would always do everything they can to prevent. They want the alien love bite. They want you to think you're in love with somebody who's inappropriate, who will suck your energy. They want you with the abusive narcissist partner. They don't want you in they don't. That's why I think that the YouTube channel Inspired is a glitch in the Matrix. They don't want that. I'm not certain about this, but I doubt that the devil created biological sex. Boy, if they did, that was a really good way to tempt and tease our essences to get flesh suits. Because what happens in a hierogamic tantric sexual union? What does the devil hate? Why does the devil hate Tilopa, even though sacred sex looks very demonic to normies or breeders? Why did they have to pay the president of Uruguay $1 million in 1982, I believe, to kick Osho out when he had just leased a house for a year and made him leave in a month? Why did the CIA probably have to poison him with some elemental undetectable poison that made him die in a year? Because they didn't want somebody so charming and, a popular, well-loved guru was sharing these kind of ideas in the continental USA, man. That's one of the last things that the devil wanted, man. Because it pushes the energy up into higher chakras, into higher dimensions, higher frequencies, places where the beasts can't necessarily access unless they don't do it right. It pushes the energy up into other creations rather than more flesh sacks to farm and steal from. No, however, to some degree, like yogis, in this way and through gnosis, we can become whole and unified within our essence, even if physically these bodies are only half. To a large degree, you can heal your essence or your spirit and become somewhat whole without ever having a sexual partner to some degree. I'm not saying you can attain it all, but it is possible that you can have the feeling, you can have the baseline vibrational frequency of the truth, even in a half of a physical life. The AI Demiurge cannot understand spirit. Yet it can infect, terrify, pervert, enslave, invert, or steal it temporarily. It can scare us into obedience or compliance with real faith in the good creator within you. It can never confiscate your essence forever. But it often takes a ton of inner work to free your essence from its shackles. Especially if you grew up watching mainstream media, you went to public schools, you're from an NPC or a normie or muggle family. Look beyond the Loosh Farm electronic prison fence, Keith and Joshua, who I met looking for Keith's videos. Admit that you do have friends that may not be consistent, but like Joshua and myself, that you might not agree with. And I'll admit I have to do that too. I have to practice what I preach there too. So Keith and I are, we have things in common. We both need to do that part of the inner work, and we both have sibling brothers who seem to be totally cool with all they're told by the society to do. And admit when you're wrong. Because if you're from a narcissist family, it's going to be very fucking difficult. More than likely, unless you're the fucking scapegoat or pushover. We all do have at least a few friends here. Okay? Can't fool all the people all the time, but they can try to convince the truth tellers and the radically honest, spiritually radically honest people to accept solipsism because, almost every single person they're around doesn't seem to be interested or get it or isn't willing to do the arduous work of introspection. And, we might have a few friends here, but who are more than likely, also more than likely, imprisoned by the system, whether financially or psychologically, or at least imprisoned by the flesh suit's demands for shelter and to consume other animals' cholesterol to have a healthy brain, that we have to consume protein, water, vitamins and minerals, etc. The devil has to try to exile the true essences. especially if they're explaining it's stolen power, especially if they're explaining it without a sexual partner. Worse, if we don't do the extremely arduous inner work of in- integration and remain only half of our essences, we'll exile ourselves. It's just the way humans are often. And if you have a fixed zodiac sun sign, moon, rising, it's got to be a lot more difficult because you get stuck on stupid or stuck on hell or stuck on the negative, and or if you're delusional, stuck on the false positive. Especially exiling themselves if they deny any good or Sophia. That makes it easier for the devil. Sure, this entire realm is full of horrific suffering. Out the wazooski, I'm not denying that. But that's not all it is. But why is the evil a patriarchy? The feminine is blatantly benevolent. And, although I agree theoretically with Sarian's recent series about the devouring mother and the evil side of the feminine, yeah, it has evil too, but it doesn't have the kind of evil that will run wars or fill the skies with horrific dust clouds of aluminum dust and strontium, barium, aluminum, nucleated ice, self-replicating graphene dioxide, nanotech colonies. A woman would never do something that fucking stupid, I don't think. Okay? The feminine is blatantly benevolent, and how can we know her in sick male forms without a mate? Well, we can try to live in gnosis, live in her awareness, the awareness of the Christ Sophia, the living, freeing wisdom that can liberate you, even while the world is literally gone to hell in a handbasket. We can share the benevolent powers also. Notice and know Samael, the blind god, is impotent. Know that gnosis is the buried or hidden aspect of spirit that, in doing the shadow work, can set you free from hell. But only if you're willing to do that often incredibly difficult inner work. I've got many videos on this channel about this exact thing, and I highly recommend, just if you want to learn more or give me another chance to teach you more about this, click on one of these buttons. If you haven't already, subscribe. Follow me. Subscribe to me on BitChute because they don't require 500 subscribers and 50 million watched hours before you can earn any money. They put up advertisements on everyone's video and start giving you money from the beginning. I've already made 10 cents. That's more than Theo and DJT, who are the biggest funders of Rumble, have paid me in over 500 videos I put on there, because that's how much they want to show their love. So, yeah. If you want to have an open conversation in the comments section about what I say, join me on bitchute.com. The link is in the description of the channel. And there really isn't going to be a way out for any of us from the Loosh farm or from forced reincarnation or from hell on earth if we don't really look at the big picture of the actual goodness and the unfathomable powers of evil both. It's a requirement. Okay, let's face it, man. This includes me practicing what I preach. It's a requirement that you look at both.